Welcome to episode 9 of the Comm-UNITY podcast hosted by CivSource Africa. Season 11 has been an interesting and an amazing journey working with leaders and, listening to their experiences as they recapped the past 10 seasons of the Comm-UNITY podcast. Have you listened into the Comm-UNITY podcast before? If you haven't, please do. Check it out on any of our social media platforms at CivSource Africa. So today I'm privileged to host someone who's been on the podcast before, I think about 5 or so weeks ago, talking about art and innovation and uniqueness of artists and what they bring to the space. If you listened in already to episode 4, then you can already guess who my guest today is. Edna Rebecca. Edna, it's nice to have you on the podcast again.
Well, thank you, Antonio. I'm excited to be here.
It's been about 3 or 4 weeks since we last met. What has it been like for Edna? What has changed? What has Edna been up to?
Well, Edna watched The Fast and Furious 10. It was an exciting movie. The running themes were family, but I enjoyed the stunts. I did enjoy the stunts, and one quote stayed with me. Find your line, feel the car, and fly. So it speaks about faith and just having the courage to fly. So, yes, and I got a new stuffed animal, which I called Eddie the Odd Crocodile.
Wow. For those who are wondering, you're still on the Comm-UNITY podcast, and no, we're not doing a recap on any movie. It's on the Comm-UNITY podcast. Episode 9 talks about season 9. Oh, interesting to know that Edna has been up to movies and stuffed animals. So Edna, let's dive deep in to season 9, giving beauty, exploring arts and culture across the continent and what this means to philanthropy. So what was the idea around season 9? For those that haven't listened in, this would be a good time to maybe just pause and go and just tap into the introduction or 1 or 2 episodes of season 9. But Edna, what was the inspiration for season 9 before I could even mention what it was about?
So Giving Beauty was exploring arts and arts and giving. Arts and giving. So in season 4, we talked about arts and how artists are givers in themselves. So when we looked at season 9, we said, what else? How else are artists giving in Uganda, in Mali, in Rwanda? So we got a title that encompasses that did not discriminate, but also allowed us to explore different art forms, speak to different artists, but also different art practitioners that were giving back to their communities in one way or another. So it also celebrated the beauty of arts in giving.
Wow. The beauty of arts in giving and across the African continent. So tell us more. So your journey, I remember starts, interesting travels and, exploring what the continent was. What can you, excite our listeners about travel and the beauty of art and the experience of, getting to know what is out there and what generosity looks like as an artist?
There is a saying that if you're an artist and you travel, that is where your journey begins.
Wow.
That is where your inspiration begins. Wow. So when we were recording season 9, we had an opportunity as the Konyesha Art Fund to go and attend the Segu Art Festival. And that was in Mali.
Wow.
So it was very interesting, exciting, but also going to another African country and experiencing their culture, their traditions. I loved the dancing masks. I loved their music, but also the artists and seeing how different artists were giving back not only to their community, but to fellow artists. So when COVID-19 came, it left a lot of artists struggling because they were used to the traditional form of selling, of doing things. But then now a lot of artists were struggling. They were struggling to survive. They were struggling to create artworks. So when we went to Mali, we met a community of art practitioners that created a safety fund that they were giving back to individual artists to allow them to create, but also to survive, to pay for their food, to pay for their electricity, to pay for their housing. And the artists were not asked to pay back this money. They were just giving them this money to allow them to continue doing their profession. So just seeing those different facets allowed us to see giving in a different way. One particular artist stood out for us is Mr. Abdoulaye Konate. He's a tapestry artist. He's very well known around the world, and he comes from Mali. He has got a design school, but also he is one of the board members of the African Culture Fund. And this fund exists in Mali, but also it's a fund that is giving back to artists. It's teaching artists. It's providing different workshops for artists. It's providing different opportunities, exhibition opportunities, both within the country and abroad for countries. It works as the Kuonyesha Art Fund does, but for it, it's more on an international retrospect. But then they have different initiatives that they're giving to their artists and their partners. They're not looking at them as just producing artists. They're looking at them as humans first. Much as you're an artist, you have bills to pay. You have a family. You lose loved ones. What else can the fund do to help support that? And just to see that they already had mechanisms in place and policies and procedures that allowed that support to be funded back to artists. In a way, it's philanthropy at its best.
Wow. So your journey starts in Mali, but for those that haven't tuned into season 9, it goes to Kigali, it goes to Nairobi, and so many other parts of Africa. So as you hosted the different guests from the different countries across the continent, what were those 2 or 3 themes that stood out for you when they spoke about what they're doing to give back to community, what their experience is like? Because we know that actually at the heart of African philanthropy is community. So that in itself speaks to the uniqueness of our identities as one people. So are there any 2 or 3 things that stood out for you from across the continent?
What stood out for me is community. Community in the way that the different individuals created platforms that allowed artists to thrive. One of them was Rahul Lugamba. He's from Rwanda, and he is using his digital platforms to open up avenues for different artists in different parts of the world, in East Africa, in Rwanda, in Mali. These platforms allow artists to interact with different artists, to see what work they're doing, but also to see how they're connecting with their different communities and what policies or what things they're doing to allow them to thrive. One thing about his platform is it speaks about entrepreneurship. Just as an artist, how can you think of enterprising your craft? Enterprising your craft within the community that you exist in. And that comes from a place of looking at your community. What are their needs? How are they surviving? And then creating from that as an artist, you have to survive. You have to connect with your community, but also how do you do that online? How do you do that digitally? And this platform is available for free. So he is giving back to his community because he's passionate about Microsoft. He's passionate about technology. So he's using that platform to give back to artists, to allow them to connect, but also allow them to learn from each other in different communities. Then the other individual we spoke to is Nabufal. Nabufal is using her platform to connect women, young women, creatives and artists, to Microsoft and Google to see how they can still connect. They can learn basic skills of how you can take a picture of your artwork, how you can communicate about your artwork, how you can use social media to communicate about your artwork, but also how you can put the message out there. Much as artists are creatives, we need a voice. And this voice, it transcends to different human beings, the way they perceive our artwork, the way they relate to our artwork. So for her to provide this platform to artists allowed artists to have a voice in a time where COVID-19 had closed off everything, but allow them to have a voice to speak about the difficulties their communities were going through, the challenges they were facing. If you look at the time of COVID-19, a lot of songs came up, much as in the television they were saying that wash your hands after going out or interacting with people. The songs and the films and the art resonated more with their community because it was entertaining, it was exciting. And if you do some research on most of these songs and productions, they were done for free. They did not receive money for it, but they felt that their community needed to get this message. And how can they get this message? It was through art. So for individuals like that to make this possible and accessible in itself is a beauty. It's a beauty when you see artists speak about the things that they learned from these platforms and how they're implementing them within their community and how the community is embracing them. It's magnificent.
Wow. Thank you very much, Edna. So, just one more question. And this is just to trick it a bit. When we think about art and travel, and listening to the diverse cultures, the different symbols and expressions of generosity across the continent, how do you think travel helps with art and just appreciating the different cultures and environments that different artists operate in?
I think for any artist out there that is listening and you haven't traveled, you should travel. You should go to a place that you haven't been before. Give yourself that time to experience that place, to connect with your the community there, to connect with the food, the music, the movies, the dance. You will come back a different person. If you're looking for inspiration, travel is the best way to get that inspiration. If you're feeling blocked, because artists also get artist block, like you can create anything, you feel lazy, you feel tired, you feel fatigued, take time off and travel, because it's very important in an artist's career to travel because it exposes you to different things. You see how other artists are thriving, how they're presenting their work, what they're creating from, what materials they're using. Even that alone can jog your mind into creating something different, taking a different path in your art practice. But also, art is an experience. It's a feeling, it's something that just lives with you in your body, in your skin, in your movement. When you're creating something, it's like you're creating something out of you. You're creating yourself. And for you to create your full self is for you to have experienced so many things, experienced so many stories, so many lifetimes. So for you to create from that place, it has to be rich. And the only way you can plant seed and let that seed bloom is if you travel and you allow yourself the freedom to experience different things.
Wow, amazing. For those that haven't yet gotten their air tickets, please just tap into the Comm-UNITY podcast season 9 and travel with Edna as she, interviews and interacts with the different artists across the African continent. It's been a pleasure hosting you, Edna, once more. I do not know if we'll host you again, but the community has really benefited from the wealth of your experience with arts and giving beauty through arts and culture. Have a great day, Edna.
Well, thank you, Antonio. I hope we all give ourselves the time to experience art because it's a gift you give to yourself. If you want to think of philanthropy a different way, go look at art, visit a gallery, go visit a craft shop. The experience in itself is a gift to you, and that's philanthropy.
Wow. Well, I'm on my way to a gallery right now, so have a great day. Dear listeners, stay tuned as we continue our journey recapping African philanthropy and the power of community. Also to remind you that our episodes are available, different seasons on all our social media platforms at CivSource Africa. And to interest you in our publication, Our Generous Spirit, that talks about the different symbols and expressions of giving across Uganda, and the book on African proverbs. You can get these at a restock for those that are in Kampala and those that are in Jinja at our local flavors. So those that are neither in Kampala nor in Jinja, please reach out to us on any of our social media platforms and get a wealth of what art and culture and photography and generosity and giving look like. Thank you. Until next time.